Hello guys and welcome back to TNT Madness. Today I'm showing you the strongest base I've ever made on this channel. So of course, since this is the strongest base, it's going to be a lot bigger because with bases, unfortunately, it's really hard to make them really strong in a very small area. But as you get bigger, they get a lot stronger, but there are lots of ways to make them even stronger in even a space like this, which is 6x4 chunks, or if you're building it in a big line, it'll be 6x6 chunks, and this is a hell of a lot more effective than just a bunch of wraps or generated walls, because it has a ton of unusual walls, or not really unusual, but just a lot of strong walls past the second checker box, which is these two sand walls in the middle that are beside the base. We've got a ton of walls there that are specialized for keeping your base as secure as possible, and then we've got some more generic walls, and then two more checkerboards. And sand walls are extremely strong, and if you don't know what checkerboards are, I will be making a video on it soon, and I will be briefly explaining them. But this base is absolutely amazing, and if anyone is building anything even remotely like this on a faction server, then they will be golden for ages. There is no way, unless someone annoys the wrong person at the wrong time and they get their whole faction over here and spend the next like 2 days trying to figure out a 251 shot or something that can break through regen walls and anti-nuke walls and all sorts of stuff, and they're still going to have a hard time. And if it takes 2 days and you get onto them, then they're going to have a hard time. So this is by far one of the best bases you can build in factions, and even if you build a bigger base than this, it won't be that much stronger. This is pretty much the perfect blend between extreme defense and size. So this thing is really good, so let's actually get into it. But before I do, there's a few things that will be happening. Since this is a huge base, I won't be doing a full-on tutorial. I'll just be going over the basics and showing you what they are and what the different pieces are, and just the basics of how you can build them, and linking to different videos showing you how to build those parts. And also, since this thing is massive, most people will probably want to have a world download. So I'll have two versions, a water-based version, which is this, and one that has no water in it. And then you can try and rate it if you can, and if anyone does, then please send it to my Twitter account at TNT Madness, and I'll shout you out in the video at some point. But this is honestly crazy. So if you want to have a look at those, they'll be in the description below. And let's actually have a look at this thing. So now on to actually looking at this base, and probably one of the first things you noticed was this huge piece of glass panes along the side, or just glass along the side. And if you're on a faction server, just pretend this is the world border, because most people are probably going to build this in something like the end that has like bedrock on it. So let's say we're on my server, and you want to find a place that goes from sky limit to bedrock, which I'd recommend you build this at. Then you could just place this in the nether, the end, and then just place it against the world border, with this being the world border. Also, this means this is 6x4 chunks, like I said earlier, but this is just the border. But one thing about that is, if you're not building this on the world border, you can just extend this out and make another wrap. It's no big deal at all. And if you're building this on the very edge of the corner, you can cut off one of these edges. But if you are doing that, definitely make a water curtain. Don't be like Jack. Make a water curtain. But anyway, that's just the basic thing of why this base is like this. So it's technically 6x6 chunks if you have it like this, and 6x4 or 96 and 64 blocks with the full thing, and 64x64 if you're on a corner. So anyway, let's start with the very middle. So the first thing we have here is my roof defense. This is my generic thing. I did this way back when in my roof defense tutorial. You have water along here, and this will stop most roof busters because it will catch the sand, but the TNT will break on this block so it doesn't blow up the slabs, and then the sand lands in here. That is still variable. And a second layer of defense is these actual cobweb things, because what these do is when someone fires sand at them, it will catch them. So that's a huge issue, unless they have God knows how powerful of a cannon. And this doesn't get affected because the water goes here and then goes down. You just have to be careful when you're placing it here so it doesn't create a source block. That's why I had slabs in these parts here when I watered it. So that's the roof bit here. This is just a generic shell. We have this, and then we have a water layer, and then just another piece of obsidian, and that's just extra defense in case they somehow get in. We have the same thing on the bottom here. We have got a piece of obsidian here, water in this layer, and then more in here. I don't really want to break it. And then down here, we pretty much have upside down roof defense. And this is to stop reverse cannons. You can actually make this all upside down half slabs. And reverse cannons are essentially just cannons that instead of firing downwards, sand stacking, they fire upwards. So that's all a reverse cannon is, which makes them a lot more complicated. But we sort of need this defense if we're making some kind of base like this. The next thing we have is we have this slab layer here, because under most of these things along here, we've got slabs. But we also don't have any slabs along here, because if we had these all slabs, they could just tunnel through the bottom of here, and then they could just reverse upwards onto here. Even though we've got reverse defense here, it'd be a hell of a lot easier. But instead, they would have to get here, they wouldn't be able to tunnel, and then the water, you'd place the water underneath these slabs as well before you place them down. And that will stop the TNT from exploding, so that way they can't reverse. There's all these little things you gotta think about when you're building a base, and I've spent quite a while building this base and revising it and getting other people's opinions, and I think I've done a solid job. So if one day I end up making a base, or a really strong one, I'll either do, and I have like this size area to work with, I'll definitely make this base. Or something similar. The next thing we have is a regen wall, because regen walls are stronger the closer they are to your base, because people can use double tap cannons, which I intend on doing one in the future. But essentially what they do is it use one TNT and then fires another one, so 2 hybrid TNT, and then that will cause some of the water to go on to the lava from the bottom, and then obsidian. You keep raising that until you get to the spot you want. Can be a bit tedious, but when you're behind this many walls, it is horribly hard to get through regen walls. So this is our very first wall, and most people don't expect this unless they go up to the top. And most of the time, if they do build it to here, they will only be able to look to here. So they probably will see the cobwebs from your roof defense, but they won't be able to see your regen walls. So they'll see your sand walls, and then they'll just see a bunch of these walls. So that's just quite tactical. And of course, wood will be on top of there, so they'll regen like normal. The next is just a normal wrap wall, because it is great to separate that from our next wall, which is pretty much a Bundy version, or a really cheap version of the Ender Nuker wall, which I did a while ago. And a lot of people said, it's not very good on the outside of your base, which I actually said in the video. It is horrible on the outside of your base, because people can drywall shot it, which means they can just grab any old TNT cannon, fire TNT in the cobwebs and blow it up. But when it is behind tons of walls, people are hybriding it, and some people will use nuker cannons, which is a great idea for getting through tons of walls like these. So let's say they use a nuker cannon to get through all of these walls, and then they hit here. They are stuffed. So these walls in the front make it a hell of a lot stronger, and this just stops them in their tracks, because what happens is the sand will get stuck in the cobwebs, and that's why I have them too high, and if they manage to get through that one, we have 3 layers, so it's really hard to even get through that, and then that will only destroy these 3 blocks. So then they have to keep firing until they destroy all these, which is like 9 shots at least, and then they have to fire that 3 more times to get through all these layers, and that's 27. And a nuker can't get through a regen wall. That's just how it works. So you could add another regen wall, but they are super painful to make. Nukers can actually get through them if they fire them at the top, because then the water will turn them to obsidian from the top. But this stops it in its track. And a lot of people don't like anti-nuker walls, but to me, they are one of the strongest things you can make. So definitely recommended building this. And the next thing we have here is what's called a checker box. And essentially what a checker box is it is sand walls that have got this little redstone signal on top. Of course, I've got like 4 going through here. But what this allows you to do is, let's say you have a home set here, and it's your turn to check to see if the base is raided. You could go here and go, oh, something's fishy, because most of the time, if you're looking at your cobblestone walls, it's really hard to find something. But on here, as soon as one sand breaks, if I just do it now, to be honest, you can see the signal will break, and then, as you can see, it breaks the whole signal. So now there's no redstone signal coming through here, and go, oh, red alert, let's find where it broke, fix it, and then blow up whoever is destroying it. So we have one there because let's say someone has nuclear cannons and gets through all these walls and get here, then you can tell if they actually get through these sand walls. And this is just your outer layer. It's another double checker box, and it's sand walls as well. So these work essentially the same, but it's really good for monitoring your base, and it's great for, let's say, you have a bigger faction. And this is a decent sized base, to be honest, if you're building this to sky limit, because there is about 24 by 24 blocks of space to work with in here, maybe slightly more. I haven't completely counted, but it's roughly that. And this is just honestly a really great way of keeping track of your base. It doesn't help it make any more unraidable, but it certainly helps. Also, what it's going to actually do is try it from the bottom, because as you know, sand falls. And the reason we have double instead of single is I personally like double checker boxes instead, because normally they get through one sand wall with a hybrid cannon, they go, oh yay, finally passed it, and they find another one and go, urgh. Sand walls are really strong, to be honest. They're not the strongest thing, but when you compare it with a lot of stuff, they are quite strong. They're just annoying to place down. So what we have in between all this is a bunch of wraps and corner pillars. And the wraps are essentially just here as walls. A ton of walls that you can easily generate and make it horribly hard for people to get through, to be honest. That's what most people do. They just build a base and make tons of wrap walls, but it's not all about that. And these corner pillars is, you could technically make these wraps, but I prefer corner pillars because of one reason. Because let's say someone is going at you from the corner. What happens is it's really hard to corner bust corner pillars because you can fire sand at it and it'll go off the side. And another thing is, if you're trying to hybrid from this angle, it can actually hit the side of this, because most people, unless building massive cannons, they don't have piston aligners. So it is really easy for the sand to get tracked in one of these, and then it just becomes absolutely useless. So that's the reason corner pillars actually exist, and it makes them really strong. We only have them on the corners because anywhere else it's pretty much useless, and it's pretty simple. So, there'll be a lot of tutorials that you can go have a look at. There's one for the regen walls that I have. I should have links somewhere on the screen. I have one for the roof defense, one for the regen walls, one for the anti-nuclear walls. I haven't done checkboxes yet, but when I do, I'll add that. I have one for fastest way to gen walls and one for corner pillars. I'll probably be redoing that because that video is not the greatest. But if you want to check those out, you can. So that's essentially how you make this. But anyway, now if we go way over here, I can show you how I base this off. So I'm not going to be building the whole thing. I'm just going to be giving you some tips for when you get started. The first thing is you'll need 24 land at least to build this if you're building this on the edge. I recommend you have more just so it's harder for them to actually so there's more distance between your walls and the cannons, and the more land you have, the better. You can have 24, but I'd recommend that you have at least another chunk layer around it. You don't have to, it's just helpful. And you can also have a massive water curtain on that as well, and it just helps. So the one thing I would base this on is, if you can, try and find a border that is right against the edge of the land, like this. So let's say this is the world border, and this is the edge of the chunk. Try and do that. If you can't, that's fine. It just means you have to use slightly more land, but it does mean that people can't claim the behind your base on the world border, depending what server you're on. If you're on a server like mine, you can't actually world border glitch because we have solid walls, which are in 1.8, compared to like 1.7 servers that use the world border plugin, which we used to use, and we use it as a backup just in case. But because of that, you can just run against the wall and claim the land. So apart from this being slime chunks, we have our main base that'll be in this 2x4 area, but is covered by the regen walls and that one layer of slabs. And then it goes out to our next thing, and then the next thing. But if you want to really check it out, you can download in the description below, like I said. But one thing I recommend doing is, you don't have to lay, let's just say it's bedrock level, is since you are having your first layer slabs, except inside this 2x2 chunk area, I would place down 2 colored slabs. What I did with mine is I had slabs, stone slabs, and quartz slabs, and you can actually see that if you download the world. And the outside of it will be the quartz slab, and the inside will be the normal slab. It's just so you can keep track, and when you're measuring your actual base, if you're building this exact base scale to scale. But if you're not, it really just gives you some tips of how to build a base. So that's really all this video is. Like I said, if you want to learn more, just download the world. You won't regret it. Even if you're not really interested in building it, I would download the world anyway. Just have a look at it because it's quite impressive. But anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, whether it's a smaller base, even larger base, like a really good Nether base, then leave a like and tell me in a comment of what base you want me to do next. And if you want to see more videos like this and be updated for my 3 or 4 weekly videos, then subscribe. But anyway, goodbye from TNT Madness.